So our next guest, CBS has been great to us today. She's worked with at least two of our previous guests and with more that are coming up. But a sideline reporter for the NFL on CBS, a sideline reporter for March Madness. She has anchored the CBS Sports Desk and hosted At the Half. So pleased and grateful to have Tracy Wolfson with us. Tracy, if you could unmute your microphone, because I have not yet found you in the masses here.
I'm here.
Oh, there you go. Tracy, thanks again for being here. I appreciate it. If you could start off with a 30-second or so recap of how your career went from square one to where you are now.
Well, it's difficult to do it in 30 seconds because, as you know, I think the business now is a lot different than it was then. I didn't know how to get in front of the camera. I wanted to do it since I was 7 years old. I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to go to the University of Michigan. And from there, I got a great internship at HBO Sports. Met a few friends who or colleagues, people I worked with there that worked for CBS. And so when I graduated, or while I was actually at Michigan for my senior year, they said to me, come work for us whenever we're up at Michigan doing a game, be a runner. And that's what I did. I was a runner for college basketball and for football and for ice skating and golf. And then I graduated and I was a researcher for CBS first. I worked behind the scenes for right out of college, never in front of the camera. I didn't have a tape, so it was impossible to get that first job. Then I left there. I was an agent for a year, actually, representing broadcasters.
Wow, I had no idea.
At a company called If Enterprises. And that was a different experience. I saw the other side of the business, saw how your tape needed to look, what your voice should sound like, who to send your tapes to, the writing aspect of it. So that was a really good experience. I was a sports producer. I left there, was a sports producer at News 12 Long Island for the legendary Bob Wolf. And then I made a fake tape and I sent it all across the country. And as the saying goes, if you throw enough stuff against the wall, something's going to stick. And I got my first job in Trenton, New Jersey. And that's where I did 5 minutes of sports a day, never live though, had to cover some news, got a big break to go work for MSG Network and ESPN. And then after a year there, wound up at CBS. It was my 16th year at CBS.
Well, congratulations on all your career success. What went into your fake tape?
So yeah, you need a tape but who's going to give you a tape? So that's kind of the problem. And what I wound up doing is when I was at News 12 Long Island, I decided to, I befriended, of course, the other reporters there. And one of the reporters said to me, hey, come out with me whenever I do a hit or a feature or a story. You could do it too. You'll just tape it and we'll edit it all together. And that's basically, I took one class also to learn to, shoot a camera and edit. And then I put it all together. And like I said, none of it ever aired. And that's how I got my first job. But I felt like as long as I had the opportunity to show that I can do it, that I would get the opportunity because in my heart, I knew I could. I just really needed someone to believe in me.
You have no idea how many people you just motivated, Tracy, about the fake tape thing and the fact it doesn't have to have been on the air to be on your demo. You just need to show employers what you can bring to the table.
Exactly.
All right, let's go to our audience questions. We'll start with Olivia Conte. Olivia, thank you for being here. Let me make sure. There, I think you're unmuted now. Go ahead and state your affiliation if you would, and your question for Tracy.
Yeah, hi Tracy. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm a junior at Syracuse University, and I'm aspiring to be in your shoes one day and to be a sideline reporter. What is one thing you've learned over the course of your career that has been the most helpful for you that you think would help young aspiring sports broadcasters?
I think one of the most important things is keep your contacts and utilize them. And you're at a university like I was at Michigan that has an unbelievable alumni base that you can tap into. Utilize that, reach out to those people. More people, they're all willing to help someone who went to their university or college, before anyone else. There's that connection, that automatic bond there. And so utilize those contacts and keep reaching out to them. And that will open doors for others, because they may say, I don't have a contact here, but I know someone else who does. So let me reach out to them and put them in touch with you. So I would think, one, that's really important. I think versatility, being willing to do, really anything, any opportunity to get your foot in the door. Because, I worked figure skating, I worked auto racing, I worked rodeo. I don't know anything about horses. I don't know anything about changing tires, but whatever it was to get my foot in the door and get that first opportunity, even though, yeah, I want to be an NFL reporter, I want to do college basketball, but it takes a while to get there. Be willing to do those smaller sports to get your foot in the door. And then the last thing is really, honestly, just be a good person and a good teammate, because as long as people enjoy working for you, they'll go to bat for you over and over again, and you'll have longevity in the business that way.
Mhm. Let's go next. I'll go back to somebody I know is an aspiring sideline reporter as well, Tara Lynch.
Thanks so much, John. I appreciate this. Tracy, it's so great to be able to speak with you today. I'm a sophomore at Ithaca College, and I've done a lot of reporting, anchoring, play-by-play, kind of the whole gamut for Ithaca College Television, as well as ESPN Plus at Cornell University. So my question for you is kind of twofold. One, as a female sideline reporter, how have you balanced being a female in the locker room or around other athletes? And two, how do you balance, the storylines that you've prepared ahead of time with, talking about what exactly is happening, injury reports, et cetera?
So the balance, I'll start with the first part of handling being a woman in the field and in the locker room, which I'm not in as much anymore, but just, around the teams. It really all comes to just being professional, and it's not only, knowing your stuff and proving that you know your stuff so they take you seriously, but also the way you present yourself on air. I think that's really important when you present yourself in meetings. And I think it's all about being professional and have that knowledge, and then no one could second guess you. I think in terms, what was your second part of your question? I'm sorry, Tara.
No problem. It was about how do you balance as a sideline reporter those pre-prepared storylines that you've already been prepping the whole week or a couple of days with there's an injury, there things that are currently happening.
There is a lot of that winds up on the cutting room floor, as you know. You come in with, 10, 15 stories, and you wind up getting one or two in. But that's actually what I've come to love about being on the sidelines, is kind of being the investigative reporter and really finding out what happens at the game as opposed to those pre-prepared stories, and then taking those pre-prepared stories and weaving them into what's happening in the game. To me, I think that's the most important, to make everyone feel like you're all on the same page, is when you find a story that works with what's happening in the game, that's when you utilize it. And then this way, you, first of all, don't have to prepare as much, because really those extra 5-10 stories are happening in a blowout when they're calling for you and saying, we need your help, Tara, we need your help. But more often than not, people want to know what's happening in the game at that time, and anything relevant that pertains to the game. So I think that will help you limit it a little bit and not have that frustration of, oh my God, I just put all this work into it. I've got 15 stories and I got one in.
Thank you, Tara. Next question. I'm unmuting without success so far. Maybe you can help me. Lisa Byington, thank you for being here.
Lisa!
Hang on, I'm still trying to unmute you, Lisa. If you know where to unmute yourself in the lower left corner, I keep clicking my unmute button, but it's just not working. Let me try.
I've seen a lot of familiar faces, though. This is cool.
Yeah. Let me, maybe Lisa's not here at the moment, but I should still be able to unmute her. We'll try to go back to Lisa shortly. Let's instead go to Madeline. Madeline, if you would please state your affiliation and then your question for Tracy.
Hi, Tracy. Thanks so much for being here. I'm a junior at the University of Michigan. Go Blue.
Go Blue.
I work for the BTN Student U and then Wolverine Women, which was actually based off of your talk show. So we love to talk to you. I was just wondering, what advice have you gotten from people in the industry that has really kind of stuck with you, either in your first breakthrough years or even advice that you've gotten now that has kind of, stuck with you in your job?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest pieces of advice happened really early on in my career where, I basically, fell flat on my face in front of on national television. One of those moments where, you think you're climbing and you're getting there, and then all of a sudden you're like, you have to take this big step back. And what do you do in that moment? Do you crumble? Do you fall? Do you, pick yourself back up and keep on going? And I'll tell you briefly, the quick story is I was at the US Open and I was doing an interview there. And by the way, that was like my dream job, was to cover tennis. And so I had the opportunity. I was live at Arthur Ashe Stadium, but I was also live on CBS. And I'm listening to Mary Carrillo, and she's talking about Leighton Hewitt, who won the match, exposing his weaknesses. And so you feed off of a lot of times what they're saying in your ear because you're part of the broadcast team. Well, I didn't really realize it's going to the house, to the fans that aren't listening to the broadcast. So after he comes back from this crazy down 2 sets and he wins in 5 sets, I asked him that question. Well, it was not the question that the fans wanted to hear. They wanted to hear, how'd you come back after being down 2 sets to love? And the whole place booed. Okay, I got booed off Arthur Ashe Stadium. And I was really embarrassed. And I have to be honest, like, everyone from STAA, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? And even my boss at the time said to me, Tony Petiti, what a great guy. He said, it was the right question, not at the right time. And remember, you're not Barbara Walters. And that's what he told me. And if you guys all remember Barbara Walters, she's a legendary broadcaster, legendary interviewer. And it really made me think, I'm still going to try to ask those really tough questions, but think about those questions, the right time, the right place, how to ask them, when to ask them at the right time. Soften someone up. If you have only 2 questions and you're second, you have to ask this hard-hitting question that might be a little uncomfortable. Well, don't just go in for it. Give a soft up question a little bit, lead him into it, let him take it, her take it, and then ask the second question. But interviewing is really, it's a challenge. It's a give or take, and you really gotta work at it. So I think that was a really good, a good piece of advice from him, that remember, you're not always going for the tough, knock it out question. Really know who you're talking to, your time and your place, and understand what's appropriate at that moment.
By the way, Barbara Walters wrote a very small book. It's hardly more than a pamphlet, but a guide to interviewing, and it's fabulous. I don't know where you can get your hands on it other than Googling it and crossing your fingers and saying a prayer, but I stumbled across it many years ago and thought, wow, this is gold. So anyway, I still couldn't get Lisa's mic to turn on, so I apologize. I don't know if it's a setting on her end or mine, but I tried. Let's go to Jill Guerin. Hello, Jill. State your affiliation, please, and your question for Tracy.
Hi, my name is Jill Guerin. I'm the play-by-play announcer for the Visalia Rawhide, which is the Advanced A affiliate of the Arizona Diamondbacks. And something that I've wanted to start to go into is sideline reporting, trying to do it in the off season. So what advice do you have for a play-by-play announcer who wants to go into it? What aspects from the booth can I bring to the sidelines?
Yeah, and kudos to you, because that is a really difficult job, being in the booth and doing play-by-play. And I've never had the opportunity to do it. I fell in love with sideline reporting and have never wanted to leave the field and that action. I think there's a lot of different skills that go into it. And one, as we just talked about, is interviewing. And that's what I would perfect, because that's really what you're going to do, and you're going to be not judged on, but people are going to see the most, or those interviews you're doing in crucial moments, or pregame or postgame, or in baseball, it's in the middle of the games a lot of times. And so that's the one area I would say definitely perfect. You obviously know the game, you have the knowledge for the sports, and then you're trying to find things, as I say, on the field that the men and women in the booth can't find. You're the eyes and the ears down there. They can do all the stats and they can tell you the play-by-play and they can break down what's happening, but they have no idea what, you know, the quarterback just said to his head coach when he walked off, or, you know, the interaction on the offensive line, or, you know, what's happening with, you know, the running back's, you know, ankle, or, you know, I'm relating it to football right now, not to baseball, but it's the same scenario. So it's those little things that you can provide on the field or on the, you know, on the diamond that they can't get in the booth.
Jill, thank you. I'm glad you're here. Let's go next to Jenna Fink. Hi, Jenna. Please state your affiliation and then your question for Tracy.
Hi, John. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Jenna.
I'm a junior at Syracuse University as well. And my question is, you know, I was watching you and I remember watching Super Bowl 53 when you were struggling to get Tom Brady after they won the Super Bowl. How do you prepare for and approach, you know, unexpected situations like that on the sideline?
You know, I'm going to just take this time to tell you two quick stories, because if you go back to Super Bowl 50, and I did the interview with Peyton Manning, and that was my first Super Bowl ever. And that actually almost didn't happen because our producers were like, you know, we're going to get him on the podium. We don't have to interview him on the field. So by the time they told me they want me to get him, that circle had already formed. So I had to find a way to get inside the circle that time and get the interview, where Super Bowl 53, I was in the circle and had to figure out how to get the interview. I had a lot of preparation for it, to be honest. In the SEC, basically, there's no rules. Fans and everyone storming the field after games, and you're navigating how to get to that player at the right time. And I got a lot of experience from it. It takes that like toughness and guts and go-getter attitude. Like, I am not letting that one go. And so I basically have, you know, a method on the field is, as soon as I know it's winding down, and remember, at the same time, you're trying to get your questions right, and the game is changing. You might have to change your questions at that time. But I always have out of the corner of my eye who I'm interviewing, and I just beeline for them and get right there. And the situation with Tom Brady was, I was right next to him. I had him the whole time. He just wanted to, you know, kiss everyone and congratulate everyone. And he wasn't ready to do the interview yet. So we're standing there trying to hold our ground and make sure. And you're right. I mean, I didn't realize what you all saw, to be honest. So I had no idea that this was being covered live like that. All I kept saying is, okay, I got him. It'll happen. And patience really played a very big part in that. And of course, when the moment is there, you just have to be ready to go.
Very cool. Jenna, thank you for being here. I enjoyed your Nance reel as well. Let's go next to Kelsey Bigelow. Please state your affiliation and then your question for Miss Wolfson.
Hi, John. Thanks for putting this together, and thank you for joining us, Tracy. I'm actually transferring to K-State this upcoming fall, so go Wild.
Howdy, girl. Go Wildcat.
I'm just working on putting a demo reel together, transferring from a junior college, and you said you kind of worked on that end of things a little bit. So what would you recommend putting on a highlight reel or a demo reel?
Yeah, so, you know, I don't know if, you know, how things have changed over the time, but it seems to me the best way to put something together is, you know, splice a few quick couple of hits at the top. You know, you want to grab their interest right away. You know, you want to sound your best, you want to look your best, you want it to be the best content and really quick, you know, your quick little reports or whatever, your quick sayings, whatever it may be. And then then you can maybe space it out a little, where then after that, it's a few more segments, or, you know, just full reports. Let's put it that way. A sideline report here or sideline report there, or a call. I don't know exactly specifically what you work on. And then if you have features at the end, and remember, you know, they're going to tune out. So get your best stuff at the top, and I wouldn't make it very long. And if they want more, they're going to ask you for more. And the other thing I would say is make sure to keep updating it, make it really fresh. So every time you get something that you think is, you know, better than the next, change your reel again, update it, send out updates. And I know the industry is different in terms of how you put your tape out there now, but I think in terms of making a tape, I think that's still what people want to see.
Good advice.
And John you would know more than I do, John.
Yeah, but I've got other forms through STAA. I want to give this one to you. But your advice is sound. It's good advice. Let's go next to Samantha Casano. Samantha, I appreciate you being here. Thank you. Go ahead with your affiliation and question.
Hi, I'm a senior at Monmouth University, New Jersey. Tracy, thank you so much for joining us. It truly is an honor to learn from you and speak with you. My question is about starting off behind the camera. I know you said that you started off as a researcher. So how do you show the initiative that you do want to be on camera? And when do you kind of take that next step from being behind the camera to being on it?
Yeah, it's a fine line there because you didn't, once you're stuck behind the camera, it's hard to switch in front. And I did find that was difficult. And I think it probably is still difficult because you need to still get that tape, and getting that tape if you're behind the camera is difficult. I think if your passion is behind the camera, you definitely start out in that researcher, what they call a broadcast associate role. And then you go to it's called an AD, an associate director role, and then producer director, you split off from there. And there's really a path at every network that really goes by that, whether it's ESPN, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, doesn't matter. And that's kind of the path and the rise. In terms of getting in front of the camera, it's completely, different. You really need to, get as much experience as you can, working in smaller markets, doing your own stuff on the side, trying to work in these, doing blogs, doing, stuff you can do on the internet, working for .coms, podcasts, whatever you can, if at the same time you're working, behind the scenes, and utilize the people around you when they're not, say, hey, is there any time you can record me, or can I come and do a stand-up out on the field? We had a runner for us at CBS that, she asked, before the game starts, do you mind if I do a stand-up out there? We recorded it for her and we gave it to her, and she took, and she can use it any way she wants to. And so if you're in that position, you have the ability to utilize some of those facilities as well. Well, take advantage of that. And like I did, I'm sure if you have the opportunity to be alongside a reporter out on an event or a feature or something that they're working on, I'm sure they can take, time out of the day to just say, sure, you go do a stand-up, we'll record it for you. Even if it's on your phone, just to get that practice and something to put on your tape.
Yeah, I've seen some great segments on Reels from people that did exactly that. That's a fabulous piece of advice. Thank you for the question. Let's go next to Melanie McDevitt. Hi, Melanie.
Hi.
Hi,
Tracy.
how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, great.
I'm a CBS sideline assistant, so that's my
and you are
professional
who I was
affiliation.
talking about, Melanie.
Yes.
Correct? How weird is
Yes.
that?
I know, that's hilarious. Well, my question is, obviously this is kind of an unprecedented time in sports. And so do you have any tips, any ways that you can still be kind of adding value and developing yourself even when there's not any actual content, I guess, that you can be working with?
Yeah, I'm finding that challenging as well, trying to come up with different ways to stay relevant and do my job when I'm, stuck at home. It's a great question. And I think you can be really creative right now and come up with different ways to, make your own kind of podcasts or whatever it might be, videos or interviews with people, or whether it doesn't even have to be celebrities, it could be local athletes that are home, just Zooming with them. I mean, that's the easiest way. And you know what? People have the time. They're sitting around doing nothing right now, begging for some communication. And so you can utilize this time to, sit down and say, hey, would you do an interview with me if you don't mind, or practice on a family member, practice on a friend. This interviewing is the same thing, whether you're sitting, face to face or on Zoom, or whether you have a microphone into their, up in their face. Obviously, you can also just watch these old games. If you're into play-by-play, if you're into doing, analyst work, or even just reporting, watch an old game and do it yourself. Hold a recorder, just like old school, like I did when I was in my house, 7 years old, and call a game, or say, what, pause it and say, what would I have asked in that interview? Or how do I like that report? How could I have made that better? How could I make it my own? Or, did I like how she did it? Watch people. Learn and watch other broadcasters right now. All these old games are being, thrown out there, and you have the opportunity to do that too. So, It's a great question, Melanie. It's good to see you, even though it's on Zoom.
That's cool. We love connecting people. All right, Bennett Wise, thank you for being here and waiting. You're up. What's your affiliation and your question for Tracy?
So I'm a junior at Miami University, and I work for the athletic department as our sideline reporter for our ESPN games and just kind of a media personality in general. Now, in terms of, Tracy, thank you also for being here, but in terms of your hits and some of your opening hits as well, for setting the scene and the storyline for both teams, is that more scripted for you? Is it more bullet points? And how are you able to get that memorization down on the fly?
Yeah, I think that comes with a lot of experience. And I also think that how you like to present yourself at the top also comes with years of saying, okay, how do I want to do it? And also being comfortable to tell your producers and the analysts and play-by-play what you want to put out there. We sit down, I'm sure you do, with a production meeting, going over our whole entire open, which basically is scripted. I know, obviously, going in what I'm going to talk about, but it's usually what I want to talk about. I don't let them tell me what to talk about. And sometimes they'll say, you should do this. And I think there's something, bigger and better. I try and find the biggest possible story that they're not touching on. And sometimes, with the booth, they're sidetracked. They have to do, whether it's a highlight reel or, they don't really get into depth. And if there's a way you can get more into depth in what they're talking about the key players, I think that's the way to go. I think, obviously injuries at the top are always a big deal. I never like to be cookie cutter where I'm always doing injuries, but with fantasy football and, all the betting now, that's what people want to hear. That's what they want to know about. And also keep in mind, we read so much, we watch so much, we are on Twitter and Instagram, and we know what's happening before we watch a game. But there's a lot of people that aren't, and a lot of people that are just tuning in for that first time that don't know the storylines that have led up. So keep in mind and keep, even if it's a big story earlier in the week, you might need to bring it up because it's still a relevant story. This is the first time we're going to see them back on the field. So I think a lot of times I have to remind our producers, hey, just because everyone else has maybe read it on Twitter and Instagram, we've been talking about all week, doesn't mean that the average viewer knows about it. So there's a few, angles you can go at. But I would just say the one piece of advice is do what you believe is the biggest story that you want to do, and definitely have a voice in there. And then they can feed off of it, and it can be really a good broadcast team.
Tamar Scher, you are in the batter's box. Please state your affiliation and your question.
Hi, Tamar.
Hi,
Tamar's
Tracy.
another one. Hi. I missed you.
I go to IU. Obviously, I'm a junior. Thanks for being with us today. I'm on Big Ten Student U, Big Ten Network. And my question for you is, how in-game on the field do you center yourself when the action gets really exciting and you yourself are excited about something or disappointed? How do you control that and provide a good hit on TV?
It's a good question. And I'll just briefly say, Tamar and I get to work together during the summer at a sleepaway camp teaching broadcasting. So it's good to see you. It's really hard to stay in the moment because we're all fans and we're all watching and we are excited. And sometimes we actually have a little bit of a rooting interest. I think it's changed over the years for me because I've worked in this business for so long. But certainly having gone to Michigan, every time I cover a Michigan game, it's really hard to kind of stay focused. But what I do now is, I do center myself. I don't really look at, if you do have a rooting interest specifically, I don't look at scores. I am focused on the game. I don't really think about it. And I take this like a big deep breath and you just kind of block everything out, and once you're out there, it's a rush. You have no time to kind of get fed off of, to feed off of it. And the key is staying in the moment, because when everything's happening on the field, if you take a step back, all of a sudden you miss it. If you blink for 1 second, the ball, there's a turnover there, and then someone's running things back, and you're writing down a question, and you're like, wait a second here, what just happened? And you might be missing the most important thing. And so it's important to kind of block out those distractions and just kind of set yourself up, take those deep breaths, and then recap. I have notes with me throughout the game and just recap each time, like, okay, so what just happened? What's the big thing? Go back and say, I don't want to miss something from the first half that might have led into this second half that I need to remember about. So, write some notes down, some keynotes down, and just be able to kind of, center yourself in those big moments, especially right before an interview. It's important to take a deep breath before you go on.
All right, next up, Justin Adams. Thanks for hanging on, buddy. What's your, I know your affiliation. Please share it, though, and then launch your question.
Without a doubt, Tracy. Justin Adams in Denver, Colorado. So I work at the CBS 4 in Denver, Colorado. So as a television sports reporter and anchor. And also I'm at a play-by-play announcer for Regis University, and I do some games for the Pac-12 network as well. Long and short of it, I'm married and I have a little one, so I have to do a lot, which is why I wanted to ask this, especially with so many young broadcasters on as well. How do you be a great wife as well as do your job at a high level as well? Because for me, it's extremely important for me to be a great father, but also to spend time with my wife and time with my son as well. So how do you balance that out while you're on the grind as well?
Justin, I absolutely love that question. I love that you brought that up because it's a big part of who I am. And I want to be both. You're exactly right. I want to be the best mother I could be, the best wife I could be, and the best broadcaster. And I don't want to give any one of that up. And so I think it's really important to compartmentalize your job and what you do at home. And I've really tried to make sure that when I'm home and I'm there for my kids and my husband. And then when I'm at work, it's all about work. And I know that we have to do a lot of research and work and preparation at home. I don't even go into an office, so everything takes place in my house. And I've learned to do it around them. So when they're at school, I make sure to get my stuff done. When they get home, I'm putting it away. My husband actually and I had another conversation. We've been married 16 years. And I said to him, he said to me, can you not do the research in bed? Can you just move it aside? Can we have a little, not even the bed, but just alone time? Can we just watch TV and just chill out together? Because he works just as hard. And year after year, we're still trying to find the perfect balance on how to make it work. I think communication is huge with your spouse to say, is this working? What can I do better? And then, you have just a 1-year-old. I mean, my boys are big now, but take them, show them what you do as they get older. Let them understand why you're doing it, your passion for it, how important it is for you and your family. And I think then they'll have someone to look up to, and they'll understand. And, it's all just about a balance, but it is, you have to be all in on both.
A fabulous question, Justin. We're all glad you asked that one. Next up, Leo Blavin. Hey, I think we got another Wolverine here. Leo, good to have you here. Thank you. Go ahead and state your affiliation and your question.
Yep, another Wolverine. Tracy, thanks so much for doing this. John, thanks for hosting. Just got done third year doing radio play-by-play for a Division II school in Northwest Minnesota. But I was just wondering, for someone who hasn't done Sideline, what's your preparation week like, and what are you bringing in terms of prepared material to a broadcast? Yeah,
so it's kind of Groundhog Day. You finish up a game on Sunday, and immediately I actually get right onto the games on what I'm going to prepare for starting Monday. I mean, you're still watching Sunday night games. You still have Monday games, obviously, but I know my schedule about a week or two in advance. So I start on those games right away. I recap what happens, and then you start researching. And I find, to be honest, Twitter, as we all do, it's one of the best tools you can use. It's the new AP wire. So basically I follow every beat reporter there is for every team that I cover. And I set it all up okay, it is the time that the Broncos are going to be facing the Raiders. And I'm going to, look at each one of those beat reporters, and I'm going to follow them and see, because they are there every day. I just fly in on Friday. And so, and they're with the team every week. They understand, they know the ins and outs. So I do that. I read all the local newspapers. I read, whether it's The Athletic even, all of the big time newspapers. And really just focus on those teams at that moment. I kind of block out what else is happening because, I really want to dig in deep. And then I start uncovering those stories. And again, a lot of my stories are going to be based on what's happening on the field. And they might be relevant because, someone on the Raiders might have worked out with someone on the Broncos, during quarantine or whatever it might be, and you might want to bring this story to light. So I start uncovering those stories. I usually get about 3 per team that are really good and really solid, because as we talked about earlier, most likely you're not getting all of those on. I follow the injuries. I make phone calls, reach out to, PR guys and gals just to figure out, what their stories are. And then we come in on Friday. We meet with the teams and go to practice on Friday. We meet with the teams again on Saturday with the away team that's coming in. And then we sit down with our production team and go over our storylines. And, we rank them, like, what's really important to you? What do you need a graphic to back you up? What kind of video do you need? Can I use this Instagram post that Tom Brady did? Can we get clearance for that? All these kind of things that that can support a sideline report too, and make it look even better. And I think the next level is really getting the reporters in sync with a play-by-play and announcers. And so I'll talk to Tony and Jim all the time and say, what are you guys going to talk about? What are your biggest story points that I can help you out with? And so they'll start talking in something, and I'll talk to my producer and say, I can add to that. And then it's a team, so all of that hard work that you're doing through the week really could fit perfectly into a broadcast.
We've got 2 more minutes. Let's squeeze in if we can. Tracy, you have time for one more?
Yeah, sure.
Casey, I hope I pronounce it right. Busher?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, yay! I was torn between that and Busher. I thought, you know what? Don't overthink it, you knucklehead. Just go with Busher.
Thank you so much, and thank you for putting this on. Tracy, hello. I met you a year ago. I was at CBS Sports Network, and I watched your show, We Need to Talk, and you were fabulous. So thanks for joining us. My question is, it sounds really simple, but just keeping good relationships with players and coaches, what is your best advice on that? And building those relationships from the beginning and to where you're at right now with all the relationships that you have in the industry.
Yeah, relationships are a huge part of the industry, and it really has a big effect on your success in the business. And I think from the start, if you can prove to those players and coaches and athletic directors and, PR staff and anyone you're working with, that they can trust you, one is a really big deal, that you're not going to go and feed to the media something they're telling you in private, which, oh, by the way, happens to us all the time as the lead announce crew. If you have the knowledge and you can prove that and they can see it and they know that you really know what you're talking about and you know the sports that you're reporting on too. I think it goes back to, being like a good, normal person that they can trust, right? And that they enjoy being around and that they like and they respect. I think that's really important as well. I think those 3 things forming the relationships you have, and I wouldn't get half my interviews or my stories if I didn't have those relationships. And I've learned, and people ask me all the time, your favorite person to interview in the SEC, and it was always Nick Saban. And people are like, you're crazy. You like to interview Nick Saban? I mean, he's so difficult. Well, you know what? He respected me. We had a really good relationship. We had a lot of production meetings together. He knew that I knew what I was talking about, and I would ask the right question. And there was that respect factor. And I think you see that the more you're in this business, the more relationships you get with these players and with these coaches, that certainly will help you along the way.
Tracy, I was especially excited for your segment today because your expertise is an area in which I have minimal expertise. So I knew I was going to learn a ton. Okay. And you blew me away, all of us. So thank you for taking the time and being gracious about it, and for the fabulous information you shared. I truly appreciate it.
John, I just want to say what you are doing is incredible. This is the coolest thing, and I've had thoughts for so long to do something like this and not know how, and here you are putting it together, making it look so easy. So thank you, and if you need anything, please let me know. This is awesome.
I will. Tracy, thank you so much, man. You got me fired up. I appreciate you.
You got it. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.